Um, we're looking at the original intent of those who ratified our Constitution. And I'm going off on, some of the problems that we're looking at and things that have happened when we haven't kept declaration and restriction, why it's so important. When we haven't kept the federal government dividing the power between the states and the counties, and we'll get into that more. When we haven't used the method of amendment for making changes in our Constitution. If you look at Spanish history, going back to maybe 1848 and through 1948, what you'll see is that the Spaniards had a king, they had a republic, and they had two groups vying for power pretty seriously. One were the National Socialists, very popular at the time, and the other were the Scientific Socialists, or Bolsheviks, or the Nazis and the Bolsheviks. And they were basically trying to control what was happening. They were having elections, and they would get in the guy, and he'd be on the one side. And he would immediately start doing all kinds of things that the one side wanted done. Well, there, they didn't have to wait 4 years. They could have a special election, and they did. And they did it over and over, and they put in the other guy. And he would immediately start doing everything. What they came to was riot, rebellion, and civil war. And the Spaniards slaughtered each other. They did. They just killed each other. You read that book, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and he gets into it a little bit. Well, the deal was this. In the end, they got Franco, okay? They got a dictator. That's where they ended up. This is what happens when you allow them to get you into fighting back and forth between two different ideas or six different ideas, whatever they got. You know, the Greeks, they had some of them. The Greeks had queens and kings and all kinds of different stuff. But some of them had what they called democracy. And it was for aristocrats and the old families. The rest of the people didn't have a vote. And they had a big group that did some decision making, and they had a small group that did most of the decision making. And they went on and on. It was good. That's what it was. Where'd the Greeks end up? They ended up with Macedonia running everything, and basically first Philip and then Alexander the Great, a dictatorship. France wanted a republic. They had a bloody revolution. The aristocrats were not sharing the money. They weren't spreading the wealth. And because of that, they fought. Well, they got a republic, but the next thing you know, what'd they end up with? Napoleon Bonaparte, who was what? He was a dictator. Any way you cut it, Napoleon was a dictator. You know, all of these things happened. The English, they had a revolution and they ended up with a republic, more or less, and still went back to having a king. Kings are dictators. Okay, that's what they are. They have all the power. They had a king with a parliament, better perhaps than a straight dictator like Napoleon. I don't know. That being said, this is what happens in history. The United States, what has made it different, were the principles of declaration and restriction. The government can only do certain things. Using a federal government by dividing the power between the states and the federal government, and then down to the counties, townships, local villages, whatever. Then also, okay, using the concept of amendments, understanding that it's vested power, that the people are the ones in control. These are the concepts and ideas of the people who ratified our Constitution, not my ideas. They are now, because I read them. You can read them, they're in the ratification letters. Education at this point is where you need to go if you want to get the country back to freedom, the right to choose. That's the key here, kids. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your family background is, okay? Your nationality, historically, okay? Whether you're Cherokee or Shawnee, okay? Either one. The fact is, this is what will allow us, okay, to maintain the right to choose, which is as close to freedom as you're going to get. And hopefully this is helping.